All right, welcome back. The Outsider Sports Football Podcast back with you on this Tuesday, August 20th. I'm Ryan Ballia, joined this week by both Corey Jason and Ben Mendel. Guys, welcome in. We're going to talk about a very special division tonight, the AFC South and the NFC South too. They're over there. Two divisions that are generally not respected is the right word.
One of them may be a little bit more respected this year than the other.
And certainly, especially with how last year ended with a couple of teams in that division. I think we're talking about the same one. But
yeah, the NFC.
Oh, hey, wait a second. So you must be a big Carolina guy this year then, huh?
Yeah, right. No, I mean, look, in all seriousness, you look at the AFC South, you have three potential playoff teams there.
Yeah. It wouldn't shock me even in a loaded AFC for one of the wild card teams to come from the AFC South.
I believe you're going to have two again from the AFC South.
But I think the same goes for the NFC South. I think you can get two playoff teams from there too.
Yeah, that's a weaker conference.
Yeah, the thing with the NFC South is they're gonna you have the Saints and Panthers are just garbage. Tampa Bay can do what they did last year. Atlanta should be better. But hey, we'll see. Ryan, it's your show, buddy.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about the AFC first. The Tennessee Titans, they were 6-11 last year. Projected win total heading into this year sits at right 6.5. It was a tale of, I don't even want to say two halves for Will Levis because he came in one game and threw 4 touchdown passes. Then in the rest of the games he started, I believe he threw 4 more touchdown passes. So was it a stroke of beginner's luck? You know, my opinions on Will Levis, I projected him to for better or worse. I see him as Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz did have a potential MVP season had he not gotten hurt towards the end. So Will Levis can show good things. I will say we debated about having a fantasy football related segment on today's show. You guys were all in a dynasty league together. You guys have another draft together coming up. So we didn't want to do any sharing of info. So I'll just share one of mine and then you guys could potentially fight over them. Calvin Ridley of the Tennessee Titans, I think, is going to be a huge value in redrafts this year. So I believe in Will Levis enough to take Calvin Ridley potentially as a starting receiver or a flex guy. I know you could get him pretty late, like round 7, 8. I like Ridley a lot. He was great before his departure from Atlanta, let's say. Showed some promise in Jacksonville. Look, to be your wide receiver 3 or 4, I think
this guy
bounces back.
Your wide receiver 3 is not going to be taken in round 7, Ryan. I mean, you know, like
Ryan is subscribing to the Mayo Coffee Mafia.
I think you're both wrong with what you just
said. Don't get me wrong. I like what Tennessee has done this offseason, and I don't want to make it seem like I don't like the move of Calvin Ridley for them. But in terms of fantasy, I dealt with this man last year, and I had the Lawrence Ridley stack, and it was horrible. He was way too inconsistent, and there's no reason to believe it's going to be more consistent this year because DeAndre Hopkins is still going to get his targets. Oh, and don't forget they also brought in Tyler Boyd, who's going to get some targets as well. So, you know, Will Levis is going to spread the ball around, and I don't think that Ridley's going to just get all of the targets like you think he will. I still think DeAndre Hopkins ends up being Levis's favorite.
All right, Ben that he's trying to get in my head, and Ben secretly likes Calvin Ridley, and he's trying to downplay off of him. I'm not falling for these mind games, Benjamin. I don't know what your angle is, but I'm not falling for it.
Government name me.
For you two, nice try, Fed. For you two, and for consider Calvin Ridley in your fantasy drafts. He could end up being a top 24 wide receiver. Could be.
See, the real value in fantasy with the Titans is Tyjae Spears because, yeah, they signed Tony Pollard, but I think this is going to be similar to what we've seen almost, I guess it's in the other conference, same division, the NFC South with Miles Sanders. I think Tony Pollard is this year's Miles Sanders, and Tyjae Spears, the rookie, is going to have a great opportunity to end up taking a majority of those snaps.
All right. I like Tyjae Spears too.
I like Chiggy Aquano, or whatever you say his name. I think
the tight end.
The tight end. How do you say it, Ryan?
Corey just wanted to try and say that name. He doesn't even know what he's not seen a single snap.
Chigozie Okonkwo. I had him last year too.
Cap.
I'll show you one of the receipts from one of my.
I believe you, Corey.
All right, fantasy aside, the Tennessee Titans. What do we really expect from them this year? Brian Callahan, the new head coach, bring him in.
I expect them. Look, I think they're going to be similar to what we think the Vikings are. I think they're going to steal a couple of games we don't expect them to. I think a lot of people are forgetting that this defense is pretty good. Oh, and by the way, they also brought in L'Jarius Sneed this offseason. So it's not like the Titans didn't get better, because they did. And I think they're going to compete. If Will Levis takes the next step, this very well could be the best division in football, because then you're going to have 4 competitive teams. Mm-hmm. I think we're putting a lot of stock in Will Levis not really being able to compete, but he has some weapons at wide receiver in Calvin Ridley, D-Hop, and Tyler Boyd as his top 3. He's got 2 comparable running backs in Tyjae Spears and Tony Pollard. Defensively, they've got players. Simmons as their one defensive end as well. Very talented. Love Jeffrey Simmons. I think that Kenneth Murray Jr. is also going to be a great linebacker for them. I just, with Tennessee, you have to see what Will Levis does. But I think this can be a talented football team that steals some games and sneaks up on you. And we lost Corey. Oh, no.
Technical difficulties.
He had to run off to another side quest.
Sorry, guys. Not my fault. I was trying to get onto Happy Gilmore, too.
It's funny, Ryan, if you don't know, basically everybody who lives in this area is just being spammed with the casting calls for Happy Gilmore, too.
I got it here in PA. I was considering it.
And I
12,000 deep, the line was earlier. I was going to go with my brother, but we bailed.
I was going to say I saw that it was today, and I happened to be off from work, so I was thinking about it, but it's Happy Gilmore too. It's going to be way too much.
I put my head shut up online.
I reserve my talents to the Outsider Sports podcasts.
I have no such loyalties. If Adam Sandler calls, I will answer.
I'm out too. Ben, you could host the show. I want to be on the Water Boy too.
You don't turn down the Sandman.
Hell no.
Fair enough.
But
with the Titans, I like the pieces they have. I just don't know if it'll all come together. It's been no secret that we've kind of turned Will Levis into a joke on this pod. He's up there with the likes of Kyle Pitts. And I just don't see them putting it together. Will Levis showed a lot last year. But at what point is DeAndre Hopkins going to fall? He's been good for so long. He's older. He could be losing a step. I mean,
he's definitely losing a step.
Then Calvin Ridley. When has Calvin Ridley ever stepped up in his career? Even with a great Julio Jones, he's never actually taken that step. Everybody puts him up on this, pedestal of being a great receiver with the ability to be a number 1, but he's never shown that, even when given the opportunity. When he was with Atlanta, he could have been the number 1, and they decided to literally gamble it away. Went to Jacksonville, had the opportunity, screwed a lot of people that had a Lawrence Ridley stack. And I do sound bitter on purpose. I just don't have much faith in Ridley. Pollard, not a lead back. We saw that he operates best as a secondary change of pace back. He took the lead in Dallas behind a great offensive line and faltered. Tennessee's offensive line isn't what Dallas has. So he's going to have to split time with Spears. Spears is another guy who's just a backup. So the run game is going to be fine, but nothing crazy. I mean, didn't they draft a wide receiver in the first round a couple years ago?
Yeah, Traylon Burks. He's their number 4 currently.
But when did he ever get an opportunity to do anything?
But he had Ryan Tannehill throwing him the ball, who was hurt. And let's be honest, even at his peak, was any wide receiver really putting up huge numbers with Ryan Tannehill? No. this is where it's a big step for Will Levis because he has legitimate weapons at wide receiver. Treylon Burks, I'm not going to sit here and say he's a stud,
Right.
but he definitely works into the mix as your number 3 or 4 for a lot of clubs.
My favorite Treylon Burks stat, Ben, is that since the Titans traded away A.J. Brown to effectively pick Treylon Burks, A.J. Brown has more touchdowns against the Titans than Burks does have for the Titans.
My favorite stat I saw today, actually, it was regarding Aaron Rodgers, who I saw this on the Herd today. There is one other quarterback who has a longer streak of games started without a 300-yard passing game than Aaron Rodgers. He is the second longest active streak.
Without a 300-yard passing game.
Yep. This is, I believe it was 22 or maybe even 21. It's a 20-something game streak. The longest streak belongs to someone with a 27 start streak without a 300-yard passing game. Who do you think is number 1 in front of Aaron Rodgers with the longest streak?
Say Russell Wilson.
No.
Well, I know it's not Daniel Jones because he had over 300 in that playoff game versus the Vikings.
It was not. It's even though I don't think playoff games count, it was not Daniel Jones.
Is it Brock Purdy?
No. The guy is not currently a starter for any team.
That doesn't mean he's not on a team, though.
I believe he is currently on an NFC team. The last season, he was on an NFC team.
Was that team in the playoffs?
No, that team is one of the teams we are talking about today.
Oh,
Andy Dalton.
No.
Is it Baker?
That was a great guess. You know it.
Nope.
Oh, yeah, Baker's still a starter.
Is it a starter quarterback? Derek Carr.
No. I said I don't know if he is still on this team, but he was on the team last year. No.
I don't know.
Taylor Heineke.
Taylor Heineke.
He has the longest active streak. I believe it's 27 games without a 300-yard passing game. Aaron Rodgers is number 2 in that active streak. He went the entirety of his final season in Green Bay without a 300-yard passing game.
Hasn't done it for the Jets yet either.
That's a low shot right there.
It's over 20 games, so it's been a while.
Still a Falcon.
And Aaron Rodgers was listed as a top 100 player in the NFL.
That list just seems like it was designed for us to ask questions. Anyway, let's move on. The Indianapolis Colts. Yes, they were 3rd in this division last year at 9-8 with a chance to go to the playoffs. 8.5 projected win total this year. I mean, you see the sweatshirt, you see the picture behind me. You know I'm full of optimism for the season. Anthony Richardson, our glorious king, please save us. Jonathan Taylor's back. Michael Pittman, A.D. Mitchell. The secondary is a problem. That's the biggest weakness. Ballard refuses to do anything about it, but the part that I'm most optimistic about is if they could stay healthy, they play the 3rd place schedule. So they don't have to play Kansas City, Baltimore. They get to play, I think it's the Raiders, the lower tier team.
Come on, you don't have faith in Juju Brents?
Not really. He's hurt again already.
You're not a fan of Kenny Moore?
Kenny Moore is the one man standing alone in the defensive backfield. But
the funniest thing is Kenny Moore is listed as your nickel.
He's not even really back there, but
yeah.
Offensive side note, are you still a Jelani Woods truther?
I don't know if I really ever was because, the news today, toe injury. He missed all of 2023 with hamstring issues. Toe injury, probably going to need surgery. Just described he's out for the foreseeable future.
Kylan Granson and Mo Alley Cox, baby.
Gigantor, Mo Alley Cox, Ogletree, Will Mallory. That's our tight end room. I'm comfortable with that as our tight ends. I really am. But, Jelani Woods would have been nice to have. But I could sit here and talk about the Colts all day. I'll turn it over to you guys. Be as honest as you want. Just remember, I get to talk about the Giants next week.
Your words can't hurt us. We've seen the Giants play.
We're numb to it at this point. Look, I think that this is a lot of what kind of jump are we going to see from AR, right? What is Anthony Richardson going to do? Because obviously he showed some good sparks last year when he was healthy. Can he stay healthy with his playing style? I think he can. I'm excited to see these wide receivers, Michael Pittman and A.D. Mitchell. You guys know I've been very high on A.D. Mitchell since before we were even talking draft. I think that the Colts got a steal in Mitchell. I think that he is the best receiver to come out of Texas. I think he's better than Xavier Worthy. This guy comes up in big moments and big spots, and he's going to be someone that Richardson really does rely on, and I think he's going to actually replace Michael Pittman. I was Kyle Pittman. Michael Pittman. I think he's going to replace Michael Pittman. That's almost as bad as Jerry Duty.
Jerry Duty. Yeah, Corey wasn't there for Jerry Duty.
I sent it to him. I sent him the link to the pod and said, "Listen for the Jerry Duty." But yeah, no, I think Indianapolis offense is going to be a problem. You need Quentin Nelson to have a better season, but all around, I think the offensive line it's not that bad. I think that they're going to be able to make some plays, and the sleeper fantasy-wise on this team, obviously, I think you can consider A.D. Mitchell a sleeper on this team the way I've projected him. But Trey Sermon, don't be surprised if Trey Sermon ends up usurping JT by the end of this season.
How much wine did you say you drank before hopping on there?
I had about a bottle and a half.
That is quite an insane take.
Right. It might be due to injury. It might just be by talent. But Trey Sermon can play.
Not by talent. It's certainly
Trey Sermon can play.
Trey Sermon is a good running back. He just needs a chance.
He's not going to get it from us without Taylor getting hurt.
It might be because of injury. What if Taylor misses a game and Trey Sermon goes for 220?
What if Trey Sermon just outperforms Taylor?
Taylor's going to have to come off the field, and Trey Sermon's going to get his chance. He's the number 2 this year. I think that there's a reason why Anthony Walsh is trying to move off of Jonathan Taylor.
He knows ball.
He does not. Oh, man. Oh, don't you dare.
Ryan, you missed it yesterday because Dylan was talking about trying to make a trade with Walsh. He also talked about trying to make a trade with you. He's like, send a counter for the player I asked for.
I can't trade Ken Walker now. I just traded James Cook.
No, it was just funny because
Ryan said he was going to trade me Jamar Chase though for a second rounder. So
I didn't say that.
It's on the record now. So
I'm pretty sure I just struck it from the record as I'm going to flag that is fake news.
But Ryan, the Colts, I know they're your team. You bleed blue. Win or lose, you love them for the shoe, right? But I think that they have the second highest ceiling in the division, which I don't think is unfair to say. But I think they absolutely have the lowest floor.
Yeah.
So they can go anywhere. I mean, obviously they can win the division. I think realistically their ceiling is second in the division, but they can absolutely end up with a top 3 pick as well.
And look, Corey, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interject, but I could say realistically they're shooting for the division. I mean, there's a big expectation that Houston could take a step back having to play a first place schedule.
I didn't even give an opinion yet.
He's still
you just said second place. That's realistic for them. First place is realistic.
All right. Relax.
Oh my goodness.
Just caught myself before I said something very funny but unwarranted.
The late night outsider sports football show.
That's really what you get. I'm not the one that drank a bottle and a half of wine.
We're recording after 9 p.m.
But I think the Colts.
My mom's birthday. Happy birthday, Mom.
Happy birthday, Ben's mom.
I think the Colts have a good core. I think everything about them hinges on Anthony Richardson and him taking the step forward that we all believe. I've been an Anthony Richardson guy since his senior year or whatever it was at Florida, his last season in college. He's the guy who I thought the Giants were going to end up drafting because they would have played so poorly. Obviously, that didn't happen. He went to the Colts. Bully for you. But I believe, whether it's Trey Sermon or Jonathan Taylor in the backfield, Anthony Richardson
is this narrative? I like Trey Sermon too. This is just silly.
The fact that you called it a narrative means you're buying into it a little bit.
You guys keep bringing it up. It's a narrative now.
We're gonna push Trey Sermon.
Trey Sermon to the moon. Is he even the backup over Evan Hull?
I'm pretty sure
the man that'll take every touch to the end zone.
Evan Hull is listed as their fourth string behind Tyler Goodson.
Good thing he spent all of last year on my taxi squad.
Trey Sermon is, I'm pretty sure, available in our Dynasty League.
Hold on real quick. But I think that the Colts it's so hard to predict because they can go well under the 8 games or they can be a double-digit win team. I don't think they'll be mediocre. I think they'll either be good or bad. I don't think they'll be a 7 or 8 win team. I think if they're going to play well, they'll go over. Or if they're not going to play well, I think they go well under and win 5 or 6. You know what I mean? I just feel like they're just a volatile team. They will steal games from really good teams, but I feel like we're going to talk about them playing up or down to their competition. So I just find them so hard to peg, but I think with their, offense and how they're running it, Richardson's a big unknown. And I believe in Richardson. So I think the Colts will have a good year, but they're just so wildly unpredictable right now.
I just have Cher ringing in my head right now. Do you believe in love after love? That's what I'm hearing when you keep saying, I believe, Corey. I just keep hearing Cher.
I'm trying to talk myself and Ryan into it.
I hear Joe Hendry, so the wrestling fans know who we believe in.
Or Kevin Garnett. Anything is possible.
Yeah, boomer bust season, I think, definitely for the Colts. That
you gotta believe Mets.
Yeah, no Tug McGraw.
All right, let's talk about Jacksonville. They were also 9-8 last year. They also have an 8.5 projected win total for their over/under this year.
And they also brought in Mac Jones.
Yes, they did. Is Mac Jones going to push Trevor Lawrence like Trey Sermon's going to push JT?
No,
too ahead of ourselves.
That's more Elijah Cooks.
Jacksonville,
Christian Kirk.
Remember Jacksonville? It's kind of funny how this works out for them. 2 years ago, they were not very good halfway through, then turned it on, stole the division from Tennessee. Last year, they were very good, really fell off, had the division stolen from them. So that's the story, what it's been with Jacksonville. Yeah, they have a magical season in the AFC Championship game, then they're picking first overall 2 years in a row, just a couple years after that. So Jacksonville's, you want to talk about boom or bust. That's what I think. Jacksonville, to me, is either going to win this division or they're going to come in third. I don't see them in this position where they just get to the finish line and can't cross it. I don't think they'll be an unmitigated disaster. I think they do have some sort of floor, but they're either winning it or they're not sniffing the playoffs.
Look, Jacksonville, this really is, and honestly, I think this is the biggest season of Doug Peterson's career more than anything.
Yeah.
Because the way that they collapsed is very reminiscent of kind of the end of his time in Philly. And obviously, it took a little bit longer for that to take place in Philly, but it really just felt like he almost was in over his head and lost control, and it was very uncomfortable. This is a team that has a lot of talent, wide receiver wise. You bring in Gabe Davis, you have Christian Kirk, Tank Bigsby, and Travis Etienne as your running backs. Evan Ingram is your tight end. The offensive line is talented. They have guys on there, and Ezra Cleveland, Cam Robinson, Brandon Scherf, who could play. And defensively, when you have the likes of Trayvon Walker, Eric Armstead, Devin Lloyd, Darnell Savage and Ronald Darby in the secondary. These are guys who can play. They have guys who can play. They have a good defense. They have a good, talented offense. And Doug Peterson's supposed to be the mind that makes it go. And there's no reason for Trevor Lawrence's numbers to be identical to Daniel Jones. So, yeah, this is a really big season. And Jacksonville just committed long-term to Trevor Lawrence as well. So guess who's out if it doesn't work this year? It's Doug Peterson, because you can't take 2 steps back after taking a step forward in year 1, and that's ultimately what's going to happen to him. He's in a similar spot to Brian Daboll here.
I think you're spot on with everything you said until that last part, because I think one of these coaches that you mentioned are on the hot seat, and the other's not even close. I think Peterson, with a bad year, will get fired. Daboll we'll talk more about in the future, but I don't think.
Look, I agree that I think Daboll definitely doesn't have as good of a hand. It's not even a comparable hand to what Doug Peterson has.
I don't even think they're in the same boat or the same situation.
Look, I agree that I don't think Daboll should be gone with the bad year this year because it's not his fault. But at the same time, you're not really giving coaches more than 3 years at this point.
Look at the Jets and Saleh.
That's a different story. The Joe Douglas there's no explanation for anything Joe Douglas does.
But the Jaguars, Brian Thomas Jr. might end up becoming that wide receiver 1 there. I mean, we were all very high on him. Ryan wanted him on the Colts.
Yeah.
Fell to a division rival.
As is
who's your biggest division rival? Like, who do you hate the most?
Who do I hate the most? Ooh.
Like, I just feel like the AFC South is just kind of like how Giant fans feel against Washington. Like, yeah, you're our rival, but like we don't hate you that much.
I remember you hating the Titans the most when we were roommates in college.
Titans are definitely.
But like, I feel like the Texans would be up there as well.
The Texans now, it's a good rivalry because you
don't have a good geographic rivalry in your division. That's what kind of sucks.
No. Yeah, the AFC South is kind of weird.
What's the closest team geographically to the Colts?
Tennessee?
The Colts? No. Well, in the division, it's Tennessee. I think
just overall.
It's Cincinnati.
Overall? Yeah.
And I believe, actually, the Colts and the Bengals are the closest teams to each other, not counting the ones that share a stadium.
That's not true. Giants and Eagles are right next door. That's like a 60-mile.
You can go an hour 45 from Giant Stadium to the link.
I don't think Indy and Cincinnati.
It's literally right. Yeah, it's right down 95.
We'll have to fact check that. But I know.
What about Baltimore and Washington?
Yeah, come on.
All right. Look, I don't know. All right. I know Indy and Cincy have a thing almost every preseason, I think, where like they'll just hop on a bus instead of a plane. So they're in the conversation.
It is a 112-mile drive from Cincinnati to Indianapolis. Let's see.
Well, Ben looks that up. So what I'm getting at is I just feel like – what was that?
What was your homework for this week? You're supposed to tell me what the red on the Giants draft board meant.
96 miles from MetLife to Philly.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so that is a shorter distance.
All right, not by much.
So we're talking about the Giants draft board. That was my homework?
Yeah. They had the player coded red.
32 miles from Baltimore M&T Bank Stadium to FedEx Field. So that's the closest.
Okay.
So I believe red was character concerns. I believe injury concerns. I think.
Yeah, red was injury concerns. There was a Twitter account that debunked that whole thing.
Yeah, red was debunked or put it out there.
We'll put it out and decoded it.
So when you find a blue player, that was somebody who was like a leader, somebody they felt like had leadership potential.
Okay.
Red was injury concerns. I don't remember what pink was. And yellow was positional change. I remember that. And then purple was character concern.
All right.
Yeah, blue, red, purple, pink, gray, and yellow. Drew Phillips was a gray.
So we're talking about Jacksonville. I brought up Brian Thomas, and then I asked you about who you hate the most. Jacksonville, I feel is similar to the Colts, but I feel like their ceiling and floor are much closer together. Like there's not as much variety.
Okay.
I view them as a very middle of the pack team. They can make the playoffs. They can miss it. They won't have a terrible losing season, but they won't win you 11, 12 games. Lawrence needs to show out. He was this generational talent coming out of college. I think he's been kind of meh his NFL career.
And I don't know. Promised.
Failure.
Promises not.
He's no Azora High. But I think Lawrence either needs to show out this year, or we need to talk about him the same way we talk about, like an Andy Dalton or Daniel Jones or a Tannehill, just middle of the road guys that just are there. Ones that they have the talent, but they'll never show it out on the field other than in spurts. That they'll show it to you when you want to buy in the most and then take, 11 games off from doing it again. And I do think Doug Peterson has a real shot at getting fired this year.
Oh, for sure. If they don't have a good year, they'd let the Texans walk in and take that division.
Yeah. Yeah, the Texans, you just said it. They jump-started their rebuild. They took C.J. Stroud second overall last year. They had a second first-round pick traded up to go get Will Anderson at 3. So a pillar franchise star player on offense and on defense for DeMeco Ryans in his first year. They turned things around from the previous year, 10-7 last year, winning the division in a thrilling Saturday night primetime game in Indy. Winner went in. Then it was to be determined if Jacksonville lost the next day, that retroactively that game ended up being for the division. And they sit with a 9.5 win total this year. Again, with that first place schedule, they won their playoff game against Cleveland, couldn't get it done against Baltimore. Even though it kind of, am I remembering that game correct? Wasn't halftime, it was very close.
Well, it was close because I want to say they had like a special teams touchdown.
Yeah.
Or like a pick 6 or something that made it close. But it was one of those touchdowns. It was one of those games where the first half, Baltimore had control. An unconventional touchdown, as Corey said, got the Texans back into it. But then second half, Baltimore rolled all over them.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson was in complete control. You could tell.
So that's where the concern really for Houston comes in this year. It's, can they hang now with Kansas City, with Baltimore, with Buffalo? They're going to have to play all 3 of them amongst some other really good teams.
I'll tell you what, this team, they have the talent now to compete offensively in terms of weapons. Joe Mixon, Dameon Pierce, Diggs, Collins, Dell, Robert Woods is their number 4. Noah Brown is your number 5. John Mechie is your number 6.
You threw Dameon Pierce in there like we wouldn't notice.
Yeah, Dameon Pierce is he's bad. But, Dalton Schultz is your tight end, really emerged. Oh, yeah, by the way, defensively, Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson, Derek Barnett, Mario Edwards Jr. These are guys who can play up front. They have a great pass rush coming at you. They're linebackers. There's something to be desired there. But I like Alshire. I like Toto. And I love their secondary with Petrie and Stingley. Jimmy Ward is pretty good as well. But I think Derek Stingley is one of the more underrated corners in the league. And I just expect Will Anderson to take another step this year as well. I think that a lot of people kind of let him fly under the radar because CJ Stroud got a lot of the attention. But this is a team that, while I think that the 9.5 wins a lot of people are saying is low, is pretty fair because of the schedule and because the division should be pretty good. Like, I think Tennessee is not going to be 2 easy wins. I think you're going to have to really grind those 2 games out. You're not going to have 2 wins. I think Tennessee finds a way to split some of these games in the division, some of these 2 games in the division. So, 9.5 wins. While I think it's right on the money, I still think that this is the best team on paper in the division.
I think they're the best team, but I think all that talent you mentioned could be their downfall. Now, I know I wouldn't give Ben any of my fantasy insight, but I will say this. That's a wide receiver room that I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole.
I think Nico Collins is the only one worth it.
I don't think any of them are worth it in that receiving room just because there's so many touches to go around. And Nico Collins is, their number 3 receiver in that group, maybe, between Dell and Diggs as well. So there's just so much to go around that I just don't know how they're going to be able to feed everybody. Diggs, we know now, is a diva. You leave Buffalo, where you had a chance to win the division, to go to arguably a tougher situation, even though it's got more talent. I think the Texans are good. I think they will be good, but they need to know how to control what they have in that room. Bringing in Joe Mixon, good move, but you don't really have anybody behind him. Dameon Pierce showed that he's nothing last year. He was a flash in the pan 2 years ago. I mean, I like Dalton Schultz. He's a great tight end one, but you need to throw the ball, and Stroud's great at that, but who's he going to focus on? He's got 3 guys who all want to be that top guy. 2 of them aren't going to be happy. Do they start forcing it to Diggs once he starts voicing, his issues? How does that locker room handle it? I just don't know if I can trust what they're building. I think D'Amico Ryans is going to do a great job, but this is going to be a real test for him to show what he can do with a locker room that has a lot of guys that are, I said it before, but, divas.
I don't like saying that Diggs is a diva. It's tough to really kind of argue against it right now. But, historically, he's been okay first few years going into a team. But the biggest question is, will he be okay not being a guy getting a majority of the target share in a contract year? And that's where, you're going to see Diggs kind of get a little frustrated and upset, I think. But at the same time, I think that having a lot of weapons like this around you is a better problem to have than not having enough. Because ultimately, either way, teams are going to have to key in. You're not going to be able to double any of these guys. And someone's going to be open between Dalton Schultz, between Nico Collins, Tank Dell, or Stephon Diggs. One of those guys will be open. It's up to Stroud to get them the ball. And at the end of the day, if your team is successful, if you're scoring points, there's nothing Diggs can say about not getting the ball. Because if you're scoring a touchdown, if you're hitting the open guy, you're not going to have a problem. The problem for a guy like Stephon Diggs is if you're not moving the football and he's not being looked at. At the end of the day, everybody wants to win. And that's what it's going to come down to for the Houston Texans in that wide receiver room. Do you want the ball or do you want to win?
Yeah, and that's a good thing, too, to bring up. Fantasy versus reality. We view it as a problem for fantasy. Like, all right, all these guys are pretty highly drafted. Well, do I just want to stay away from this? And then reality is that's a really good problem to have, like you said. Having all that talent around your second-year quarterback. My advice for the fantasy drafters is go with the value. Tank Dell is usually the last name off the board amongst the 3 of them. So if you want a piece of the Texans offense, Tank Dell is probably the one to go get. But I think we should probably give our projections. We went on a couple tangents there. We still have the NFC South to talk about here.
Forgot about we have another division.
Yeah. So AFC South, I'm going to say Houston and Indy both come in at 10 wins. I think the tougher schedule for Houston will keep them from really improving from last year. Maybe their wins will be more decisive and the quality of those wins will be better, but I think both at 10. Give me the tiebreaker to Indy with that third place schedule. And then Jacksonville in third with 7 wins. They probably move on from Peterson, like you guys were saying. And then Tennessee, rookie head coach. What is Will Levis? I don't think it's that much. 5 wins, 4th place. Try again next year.
Yeah, for me, I'm in agreement with you here, Ryan. I actually have the exact same order, but I don't have the Colts and Texans tying. I think the Colts are going to sneak in here with 11 wins. They're going to slip out with 11 wins.
Higher
the
than
Texans. Yeah, I have 10 for the Texans. I think the Texans are still a playoff team, and I think the Texans ultimately end up going farther than the Colts.
Yeah.
But I believe, because again, I think they're the better team on paper, but I think Texans may have a few issues that they need to iron out early. I think that Houston's going to be a team that, gets on a hot streak, whether it's early or late, but they're going to struggle a little bit. I think that they're going to end up in a wild card, and I think that Houston ends up playing the Chiefs ultimately in the playoffs this year, whether it's in the divisional round or conference championship. I think we're going to get to see Houston head to Arrowhead this year and try to knock off the Chiefs. But, I have it. Indy, Houston, Jacksonville, Tennessee. I think Tennessee's going to be right around that 5-6 win range. I think they might be able to squeak a couple of tough games out that you don't expect. Jacksonville, on the other hand, I think they're going to be right around 500 at 8-9.
So I got the Texans winning 10 wins. Think they're going to be the winner. I don't think it's going to be that much of a controversy. I have Jacksonville in second place. 9 wins, 8-9, around there. Colts in third. I'm not going to give my record prediction out of respect for Ryan.
Thank you.
And the Titans in last place. I think they are a 4-win team. I just think it's going to be tough for them, and I just don't know if Will Levis has the stuff to get it done.
Yeah, Titans, I think they stand out to me as this year's Arizona. Not going to win a lot of games, but remember Arizona played the Giants tough, couldn't do it, knocked off Dallas. I think look for something like that for Tennessee.